All right, welcome, guys. Welcome to this live podcast which you are listening to. My name is Jason. I'm your host. I'm your host from the Brand Identity Design podcast. It's a business podcast which I've been doing since 2022, and the current series which I am doing within this podcast is the dark side of entrepreneurship. The goal of my show is to equip all the entrepreneurs that are across the world with valuable insights, share ideas, recommend strategies, help them to navigate some of the challenges in a business journey. And I do this by interviewing high-level business executives who generously share their personal and professional experience with my listeners. Luckily, my podcast has been heard in over 33 countries, ranks ranks in Spotify on the top 30% most followed business podcast. And fortunately, I was able to win an award from Spotify. I've also applied for 2 other awards this year. Hopefully, I make it. If not, we will still continue the grind. I want to appreciate all my listeners who are listening to us either live or on replay. Thank you so much for your love and support. It really means a lot. I have come a really long way, 130 episodes or maybe slightly more, over 8,000 minutes of audio content I have created around entrepreneurship, and it has been kick-ass. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and I hope you guys are also loving it. Please continue the love and support. Now, today's show is very interesting because today's show is about taming your inner critic with Kim. And I'm going to give it a guess how to pronounce your middle name, Kim. Okay, is Boudreau Smith. Kim Boudreau Smith. Did I guess that right? I hope.
You did good. You did really good.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a bit of a struggle, but I think that's how it's pronounced. I used a little help
It
from
is.
Google. So if you don't know who Kim is, she's awesome, first of all. Shout out to Michaela Kulici, who actually recommended Kim to be a guest on my show. She's awesome, and you're also awesome too. Kim is the bold voice expert who helps professionals develop their speaking confidence, level up their presence, increase profitability. And Kim is a speaking and leadership coach, a facilitator, a trainer for female entrepreneurs and high performing professional women who are seeking guidance in owning their bold voice. And not only that, the most interesting thing which I found about Kim when I was, going through her bio, which she sent me during the intake form process, she's the first woman to host an internet radio station, which is super, super cool. Okay, so shout out to you, Kim, on all the accolades, all the achievements, and all the things which you have been doing till date. I sincerely appreciate it. I've been seeing your content on LinkedIn time and time again. I think you're super, super cool. So thank you so much for being here. We need some virtual applause, Guys, let's have some virtual applause for Kim. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So I want to say hi to Elvina. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. If you do get time, do invite a few friends to join this conversation. That would be super, super cool. And anybody else who is listening, thank you so much. So let's actually get into the interview. And before we get into the actual questions about this inner, okay, so give me a sec. Okay, so the inner critique, which you call it, okay, and I think you also call it as the old hag. I have seen this on countless interviews. You refer to the inner critic as the old hag. We'll get into the specifics, but I really want to understand a little background of you. Now, you were in corporate America for 25 years. High volume sales team, used to manage a lot of people. Okay, you wanted to always, you were always the person who kind of knew it all. Okay, but you never wanted to be the bee in the room, according to your bio. I know what that means. Okay, and you said something very profound in your bio. You said that you faked it until you just couldn't take it any longer. I want to just pick up on that. Can you help my listeners understand what was the state of mind? What were you feeling during that time? Why did you feel that way? What made you take such a step?
Oh gosh. First of all, Jason, thank you for having me here today. I when I was in corporate America, I was climbing those ladders, as the analogy goes, the expression goes, and it was very easy for me. But I was doing it not because that was my love and my desire. I did it because that's what I thought society wanted me to do. So I felt like I was a wild animal, always living in a box and faking things until I quote unquote made it. I'm not quite sure what the made it is. Even to this day, I don't know what that is. And was very successful at doing it all. Had a very successful corporate career, and I just finally had enough and walked away. Because again, I was always feeling like that's why I was so very successful in outside sales, sales and marketing teams, because you didn't sit behind a desk. I was always out and about. But it's still, I've just felt so trapped because I did it all for the wrong reasons.
Right. I'm so sorry. I was trying to find the mute button. Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so much. So I'm so glad that you were able to initially, eventually find out something which you love doing, and here you are, trying to not only, you found your bold voice, and not only that, you were able to also help other women entrepreneurs finding their voice too, which is super 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 cool. So I appreciate that. I also would like to ask you your experience of being the first woman hosting an internet radio station. How did this whole thing work out? Like, was it offered to you? Did you have to make it by yourself? What happened?
Well, back in the day when I launched the internet radio station, we podcasts were just a little dot on the map, so to speak. And a lot of us entrepreneurs, because it's a marketing tool, were hosting shows on specific platforms, and we're all alone. We're in our homes. If technology goes, we had no help. We had to go, manage our guests. We had to do everything, and it wasn't easy. So I sat back and went, "Okay, I'm hearing all the pain points as an entrepreneur. How can I solve this?" So after going into, and I know you and I are going to talk about this, but after supporting women with their voices in a written form with anthologies that I had published, I launched after the anthologies radio stations so women could come and host their live radio show and showcase themselves as the expert and thought leaders that they are. I had a whole team. All my clients had to do is go get their guest, and we did the rest. We did marketing, we did the productions, we did the editing. We did all of that for them so that they could just show up and be very present with their guests. And unfortunately, it's a 24/7, 365, even with a full team in place. We're running because we had clients from all over the world, so we were in different time zones, my producers were in different time zones, and after about 6 years, I finally had taken a deep breath and said, "It's been enough time, and let's sell it on a profit," and so I sold it on a profit.
Well, this is really exciting because you were able to do something really, really cool. I do live shows, okay, but I just do it for about 90 minutes. A radio station runs like 24/7, and you do it
Mhm.
365 days. That's a lot of work, time and time again, which constant grind. Did you feel like, that was also something which you loved doing, or you were still like searching for your calling, exploring other options in that sense? Is that the reason why you ended up selling it?
I think, something, Jason, that's a great question. First of all, I really love to do that. I love being able to manage projects that have a lot of moving pieces like that. But quite honestly, the internet radio station did eat me up alive because it is 24/7, 365. I mean, if you're having technology difficulty, it just was nonstop. So did I love it? Yes, but also think at that point in my life and my entrepreneurship, my business, uh, again, I think there was a lot of ego involved because of how I was positioning myself. I was the CEO of an internet radio station that was very successful, and I think a lot of ego was in the way. A lot of inner critic was in the way.
Hmm. I'm glad you brought up the word inner critic. So let's actually explore this. Okay, can you share, if you look back, can you share me maybe a personal experience, not just with me, but also my listeners, where you felt your inner critic kind of held you back, and how did you overcome it?
Well, gosh, my inner critic, first of all, I just want to say inner critic never goes away, and it's not like a one and done. that inner critic, and I refer to it, I'm a woman, and so I refer to my inner critic. She is always there. There was times, actually, my whole corporate career where I was very successful, my inner critic was running it. I would be sitting in rooms where I'm the only woman, and I would hold back. I wouldn't speak up. These men were running all over me. There was a lot of gaslighting going on, and frankly, toxic environments. And I would not speak up. I would hold back and not say a word, thinking, don't say anything. You're not educated enough. You're still fairly new, the only woman in the room. That's my inner critic talking to me. So I would hold back and I would play small and walk out very unfulfilled out of those meetings. And then going on early on into my entrepreneurship, my first business is an in person fitness business. And I always felt like in order to be successful, and, and by the way, that fitness business is minutely, it's very small, but it's still alive. It was very huge at one time. In order to be successful, I had to chase, I had to run, I had to go, I had to prove, I had to have all these clients and be, all of this to be successful. And that was my inner critic. She had me in such a grind, and I mean a grind. Um, and then there's other situations where again, launching, my business has taken on so many different phases and faces over the years. Um, Launching in-person business a few years ago, pre-pandemic, there was times when I had to work harder. My inner critic is all about work harder, because you're not enough, so work harder. She still shows up, especially when I'm coming out of a really phenomenal, great year in my business, I'm having a really nice, subtle start to this year, and she can really chime. She could really start chiming up. You're not going to match up to last year, and I'm not about matching up to last year. I'm about scaling, but it doesn't mean it has to match the revenue income of last year. So she likes to she our inner critics are sleeping guards that never sleep. They just never sleep.
Certainly, these are sleeping guards which never sleeps. So, this is like a nice roller coaster journey because you started with corporate America, then you had your internet radio station, you were also in the fitness business, and you consistently have been grinding all these years, trying to find that sweet spot where you think you would fit in, not only for yourself, but also trying to figure out how you can serve others in the process. Am I right? And you're still trying to find that sweet spot. Okay, now, when did you eventually find out, like, this is the direction, public speaking, or I would like to do this? This would be a nice way to serve others.
Well, the public speaking piece. So I am, yes, I am a speaking coach, and also I'm an executive leadership coach for women as well, where I help them and their teams with their communications. Uh, the public speaking really comes natural to me. Being on a stage, I should say, comes natural to me because I grew up. My parents enrolled me in the local when I was 7 years old, which is considered old. Enrolled me in the local dance studio because I was a shy child. So they thought if they enrolled me into dance classes, it would help build confidence. Well, 7 years old all the way to 18, that became my whole life. It went from one lesson a week to two lessons a week to costumes, performing, competing, and so that I'm very comfortable. I'm personally very comfortable on a stage. I love the movement. I used to teach aerobics when I started my fitness business. After, gosh, I mean, this is a long time ago. Uh, I taught aerobics and spinning and all sorts of different things. So I'm very comfortable leading, being on a stage. So it comes natural to me to speak, and it also comes natural to me to also help women reclaim their voices, whether it is for a keynote, a presentation, leading teams, or finding their confidence, just going into rooms, networking, things like that, where they've been holding themselves back. Sales negotiations, high stake conversations, any situations like that.
Wow. I had no idea you had aerobics, dance, and all those things happening in the background. I wish you would have mentioned that also in your bio, but that is super cool. Before I move to my next question, I want to give a special shout out to this guy, this individual whom you see down in the listening lounge, Thomas Condell, who is from Australia. It's early morning, and he's the
Mm.
among a few listeners who actually tune in most of the time on my live shows and listen to it. So, love you, my friend. Thank you so much for consistently being here and supporting the show. We really, really appreciate that. All right. So, my question, when you were speaking into your background and the things which you have done, did your inner critic ever tell you, like, Kim, you're all around the place doing so many things, y- you know, not being stuck, not being present in just one place. You're just going up and down, doing a lot of things. Have you ever encountered that? I'm sure you did. How did you battle? How did you navigate that?
Well, my inner critic, more of my inner critic dialogue is, oh, you're not being seen. You got to speak louder. You got to do more things. You've got to jump higher to be seen. So people, it's almost like, here's the analogies where my brain goes with these analogies. Jason is. Um, it's like the we're in school and we're doing softball teams, and you've got the two captains and you have everyone that's going to be on a team, and they're picking, and everybody does not want to be the last one standing there. My inner critic always likes to remind me that, oh my gosh, you're not worthy. You're not good enough if you're the last one standing there. People aren't going to see you. They're not going to hire you. It's a repetitive tape that I've learned how to manage her when she does start chiming up. Um, or she likes the other part she likes to do is, oh, you can't figure things out. You sit with a group of women, they're so much smarter than you. That's part of the dialogue my inner critic likes to chime in and speak to me.
Makes sense. That really makes sense. So, is there a scientific reason, according to you, why the inner critic is kind of more protective? Because it sounds like it's just trying to protect you from doing stuff, or maybe restricting you from doing things.
That's what our inner critic does, by the way, Jason. It is protecting us from doing things, but those things that our inner critic keeps us comfortable in is we've taught that inner critic. We've taught that. We have taught the inner critic to keep us small and comfortable over here in this specific area, when our true authentic selves might want to go over here. That's why the inner critic will chime up and go, "Mm, let me see. You don't have enough degrees to do that, or you don't have enough certifications to do that. You don't have enough this to do that. You don't, you know what? You're the new kid on the block in this job. Don't speak up." We have taught that inner critic to keep us safe like that. That's why every time we start busting through comfort zones, because magic is when we step out of the comfort zone and we come on the other side of the comfort zone. That's where we enhance our confidence, and that's where magic happens. Is That's why our inner critic can get really loud when we're in those type of processes.
Interesting, interesting. So, I like to just expand on this, maybe brainstorm on this a bit more. So, let's assume that all those questions this inner critic is actually asking you, or telling you, not asking but saying, like, you're not good, you don't have resources, or maybe you don't have the education or the knowledge, stuff like that. Is it kind of instructing you that maybe if you were to do all those things which the inner critic is kind of highlighting, maybe the education, maybe the knowledge, if you were to work on it and maybe acquire it, do you think the inner critic would behave a different way, perhaps?
No,
No?
no, not at all. No, 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 not at all. Because all we do is just we keep chasing things outside of our bodies, and that's where we're feeding. That's where we're feeding that lack of self-worth. That's where we feed that inner critic. That's where we feed that imposter uh, and called the imposter whatever you want, syndrome, phenomenon. I talked to a woman the other day. She calls them moments, and yes, those imposters. We have those imposter moments. Those moments lead to hours, to days, to weeks, to months, to years. So we can go and listen to the inner critic. Okay, go get another certification. You'll be smarter. Go get another degree. You'll be smart. That's false. It's learning how to be enough in this moment to really claim that voice and speak up and not listen to that inner critic voice. And it takes practice and tools how to navigate through a lot of that.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Do you think it inner critic is the same as your intuition? Maybe does it have any sort of relation to that?
No, I don't think so. I think an intuition comes from quote people, Jason. People call it gut. My gut's telling me, my gut feeling. Intuition comes more from in the body. Inner critic is in our head.
Mm. So, is there a way how you can stop this inner critic, or do you really need to stop it in the first place? Is it good to have?
No, 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 no. First of all, we can't stop the inner critic. I hear so many people are like, I'm going to kick the inner critic to the curb and I'm going to shut the inner critic down. Go ahead. I dare you, try it. Because what happens is that I see that hag in the attic, that inner critic comes back 20 times on steroids, even louder. What we need to do is learn how to tame that inner critic so that becomes an ally as opposed an enemy.
Hmm. So you can't silence it. Even if you try silencing or stopping it, it comes 20 folds on steroids trying to crush you
Yeah.
over. So I think we are kind of risking our whole motivation, losing our entire motivation to do things, right? How would you
Mhm.
navigate around that? Because you require the motivation, the willpower, the strength, the discipline to make it happen. So, what would you recommend people should do in such a case?
Well, there's a lot of things people can do when the inner critic is just really it is chiming up and top of the lungs and just really getting a little too loud and out of control, as I like to say, is a lot of times when mine really kicks in is because I'm in my office and I'm getting ready to do something. So what I do is I push back and go, what do I need right now in this moment? And there's a lot of things that I may need in this moment. I've done so much interpersonal growth work and self not just self-care, but soul care, that I can tune in to what I need. A lot of times I need to get up out of my office and go outside. If it's in the summertime, I live in Michigan. Right now it's cold. If it's in the summertime, I go outside with one of my dogs and I'll spend 5-10 minutes just to get fresh air and get away from it. And the other thing I like to do is I get out, I take walks, fresh air. A lot of times, if I don't have that opportunity, I will leave my office, just walk down the hall, and maybe start doing some prepping for dinner. I just need to come out of that situation. There's also inner dialogue I do. I will have an inner dialogue so that I tame her down. And I'll give you an example. Several years ago, I live in the Detroit area, and the big three, the auto industry, all their corporate headquarters are in right there in my backyard. Ford Motor Company was launching a female leadership initiative, and they asked me to come in and deliver a keynote. Well, it's maybe a 30-minute drive on the expressway from my house. Well, I'm driving down the expressway and I have sensations going on. I grew up on a stage. Every time I walk on a stage, I still have sensations. They don't go away. If they went away, I think I would be dead. We're human. We have sensations. And I really want to say that again, sensations in our body, sensations, not up in our head where, oh my God, I'm nervous. Oh my God, this. Oh my God. That's that inner critic where we can go into stories and then the nervousness becomes on steroids where we have sensations in our body. So I'm driving and I'm oh my gosh, I'm excited to be delivering this and partnering with Ford Motor Company to launch this. But then I've got I'm scared. I've got those scared, excited type feelings. And boy, here's my inner critic. Who do you think you are? You haven't been in, look at the way you're dressed. You haven't been in corporate America in years and you're going to go into corporate. And I'm like, oh man. Okay, sister, listen here. Back seat. Get in the back seat. Don't sit behind me because if she sits behind me, you know what she's going to do? She's going to kick that seat. Over on the other side, get in the back seat, and here's a job for you to do. I need you to turn around and manage all my other sensations so that I can be very present when I walk into Ford Motor Company. So I was having dialogues with myself saying, I deserve to be walking in there. It doesn't matter with what I'm wearing. It doesn't matter. It's been 20 years at that time that I haven't been in corporate America working. I have a place at that specific room and table to be walking in. And then I did some other things in the parking lot before I went in to speak. I have some other pre-stage rituals, so to speak.
This is really interesting because, I'm first of all very happy to hear that you were able to overcome it. Okay, but let's deep dive into this a bit. Okay, now from the time Ford Motor Company reached out to you to do a keynote, okay, from the time you said yes, okay, at what all points did you feel the inner critic was coming into place? Okay, I want to understand where, at what point, from the start of the transaction until the very execution, like where does it arrive?
Immediately. I mean, the inner critic is always there, Jason. From the time that someone reached out, invited me to do this, to you go into the discovery call and the negotiations of the fees and everything. That inner critic is there. I know how to ground myself so she's not controlling the whole situation. But she's very, very present. Boy, that's, 30 to 30 minutes to 60 minutes before I'm getting ready to walk up on a stage to deliver a keynote or a presentation, whatever you want to call it. But the inner critic's always there. It's like I said earlier, it's a sleeping guard that never
Yeah,
sleeps.
yeah, and then I think as you were trying to, be closer to the goal of just executing and doing your keynote, I think it went more louder and louder and louder. Do you think there is a possibility that the inner critic is directly attached to the outcome? Maybe we fear people's judgment in terms of how we behave and do things. Do you think that could be the reason why it's kind of affecting our brain in a certain way, like a defense mechanism, maybe? Yeah, something of those lines. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I call those OPOs. Those are like other people's opinions. And what we do, and this is this is very common for a lot of human beings, is we attach ourselves to the outcome. And then what happens is we put ourselves, instead of removing ourselves from the situation, and just turn and look to either the person or the audience that you're serving them for their needs, for what they need, and things like that. So we do, as human beings, get wrapped up. Oh my gosh, if I deliver this, are they going to like it? Other people's opinions, will they approve? Will they accept? I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, and Brene Brown talks about the arena and getting down in the arena when we are business owners or leaders. We're down in the arena, our sleeves are up, our hands are dirty, but we'll give carte blanche to the people all the way up at the very top row of an arena that aren't doing the work. They're not down in that arena, but yet they have opinions, and we'll weigh in on those opinions. We will make those matter to us, and that can hold us back. That can stall us, that could take away motivation, that can have us go play small, or just simply say, I'll do it another day, or have to skew what it is that we're saying or presenting based upon what we think people want to hear. Which that's what I did in corporate America, by the way.
It's interesting that you bought Brene Brown's name, because I remember back in 2023, January of 2023, I was trying to look for guests and I came across Brene Brown's profile and it really stood out. I was not aware who she was till that time. And you know, she has a gigantic following. She has done so many things. You know, she has a podcast of her own. She has done countless amount of things, and I found myself to have this constant fear I was getting, like, you know, can I reach out to such an individual to be just a guest? Because, you know, I don't think my podcast is that big or humongous, or it has the gigantic following and those kind of things. So I was constantly having this argument or maybe conversation with myself. Should I not? But, you know, anyways, you know, what I did was, Kim, is that I sent out an email asking if she would be available to do like an audio event, you know, with me on LinkedIn and see how that goes. Now, luckily, you know, I was actually, throwing emails not only to her but also to many other guests, you know, popular ones. Okay, and some of them did respond back. Some of them have been fortunate to be on my show, and I'm very happy and blessed to have them. Same, you know, so I think it's all about you hearing it and you observe what the inner critic is saying, but, you know, you don't necessarily act on it. In fact, you know, you just do what you have to do. Would that be a fair way of dealing with it? Like, you just have to do it. Like, you know, don't worry about what it says and how it makes you feel. Just ignore it and just move on.
You know, yes, you know, that inner critic can, you know, really feed our self-doubt, and that's why, you know, should I not? As we're sitting there shoulding all over ourselves, should I, or shoulda, woulda, coulda, you know, yes, you know, that's that little tiny voice that can hold us back and actually, you know, Jason, take you to not reaching out to her because, quite frankly, what do you have to lose reaching out to Brene Brown or me? I mean, yeah,
Absolutely. That's what I was
Brene
telling
Brown
myself.
is
Yeah, who, like,
yeah,
you know,
Brene
what's,
Brown's huge, but what do
yeah.
you have to lose reaching out? That they never respond back or they say, "No, thank you?" Well, okay.
Yeah, you know, it's more like, you know, let's say that, you know, you like a girl, you know, let's say in my case, I like a girl. And what's the harm? Like, you know, just give it a try. If she says yes, nothing like it. If not, next opportunity. You know, next opportunity. Let's find somebody else. Something similar to that. I love what you're saying. Okay, let me ask you, Kim. Okay, do you think there is a possibility that sometimes this inner critic also gives you constructive criticism, which you can really think and maybe apply that before executing anything? Maybe some positive part of this inner critique.
No, that's our true authentic. That's and not to use my brand here, but that's our true authentic bold voice when we're giving ourselves compassion and cheerleading, rah-rahs and good, um, you know, go get it, outta way to go, type stuff. An inner critic, it's a very an inner critic is a very critical, negative internal dialogue. We all have it. We all have it. Some of us allow it more than others. Some of us have skills to overcome that and manage that. But the inner critic is the negative self-talk. You know, look at you did it. You put yourself out there. What a loser! Haha. You know, things like that. Where when we are saying, "Yeah, I'm going to reach out to Brene Brown. What do I have to lose?" That's our authentic voice. What do I have to lose? Of course, I'm going to read. Well, it's just an email. I mean, she never responds to me. She never responds to me. Or if her team comes back and says, "No, not available at this time," you did it. You still did it. Where an inner critic would say, "Better sit your butt down, buddy, there, because you know what? Your podcast doesn't have enough views. It's small numbers. Brene is huge. They're not going to pay attention." I mean, that's the negative dialogue that we have going off.
Hmm. That makes sense. So that makes sense. So I appreciate you making this distinction that so you have your own personal authentic voice and then you have the inner critic. So the inner critic can't offer you anything which is like a constructive criticism. The idea or its role is to make sure that, you know, you get feared of the outcome. You know, you get fearful of the results, actions, and prevent you from taking taking steps. So I love it. I love it. I appreciate it. Let's actually focus on leadership. Okay, so people who are
Yeah.
at a leadership level, you know, high performers, people, professionals. how does inner critic affect them in their roles? And what strategies do you recommend such entrepreneurs who might be at a really big, post? How do they mitigate, and how do they mitigate the impact of this inner critic, and how does it, what kind of effect does it have on those individuals?
So here's a lot of the things that I experience working with clients. I work with female leaders, of course, and yes, some are entrepreneurs, and a lot of them are in high achieving and C-suite positions in organizations. And a lot of the things that I see is they can get wrapped up into inner critical dialogue of stories of I'm too busy, can't take care of myself. I don't. Oh, here's one of my favorites. Sales calls? Oh my gosh, I'm too afraid because I don't wanna sound salesy, and we should not be sounding salesy, but that's that inner critic playing you small, keeping you down. I see a lot of women, because of the inner critic and very concerned about other people's opinions, they have to make nice and play friends with everybody. When I'm not saying everyone's got to go out there and be mean, not at all, but sometimes we do have to be bold and direct to get some things done. And that's not being bitchy, that's not being mean, that's not at all. Um, so I'm trying to run through my head some of the other things. Oh, getting ready for a big time, high stakes presentation. First thing we tackle is that mindset. I got to make sure that the outline is rocking and rolling. So we start setting up, practicing procedures. But boy, we tackle that mindset because that's when that inner critic has drank Kool-Aid with steroids and is going. And then what happens is women do present very well, and men too. I mean, because I do work with a few men, even though I market to women, but I work with a few men. Then what happens is we go up there and we feel like we need to be in sales conversations, high stakes conversations, daring conversations, presentations, almost like a robot. And these are my words, almost like a robot, where they're not showing any of themselves because they think that they have to show up a specific way in order to be accepted, get the deal, close the deal, um, grow the business, whatever a lot of those cases may be.
Makes sense. That really makes sense. I also want to give a shout out to some of my other friends who have joined the conversation. I want to give a shout out to Wade and Peggy, long term listeners. I also want to give a shout out to Timothy. He's also been following my podcast for a really long time. And I also want to welcome Regina. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. And my lovely Leslie, who has also joined. Thank you. Thank you so much for your love and support. Now, I'm just thinking, do you think the inner critic can manifest differently among different people, maybe gender wise? Do you think men receive inner critic in a different way? Maybe women receive it in a different way, and other people and other gender identities we have in this world, do they receive it differently? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a behind the scenes dialogue and conversation. I always say, women this and that, and oh my God, I was on this phone call or I was in this group, and I can't believe how a couple of the men showed their beautiful transparency, and it was dealing with imposter. And my husband will remind me, he goes, okay, yes. Men have inner critics, men deal with imposter, men have the emotions. It's because different genders, society has trained men to show up a certain way in organizational situations, and it also has uh, taught women to show up a different way, and that's the differences. I mean, men, and I'll use this example, and this is used a lot. Men will look at a job description and go, okay, I check off only 2 out of the 10 requirements, but I'm going in anyways because I know I can do it. Women look at those 10 job requirements and they have to have all 10 checked off before they apply for the job. And that's how there's a difference between the genders of how we are showing up. And that's been going on for a very, very, very long time. If my gender, women, and people that identify as female, as women, if we had much more stronger skills of managing that critical inner dialogue, we would be doing the same thing. We wouldn't have to have all 10 things checked off. We might have to have 2, 3, or 4, but we would be going in and taking the bull by the horns, so to speak.
Why is that? Why is that a woman, okay, would want to have all those 10 things checked out? Why is that?
It's what we've been told. And, and before I answer that, because you were acknowledging some people, I see Regina Hall on this show today, and she's right around the corner from me. Yeah, well, we're not in Michigan right now, but she's also from Michigan. I just wanted to acknowledge her as well. But it's because society has said women need to have it all together. It's like the superwoman cape syndrome. I believe all women have every right to wear a superwoman cape, but the cape needs to be wrinkled. But the thing is, until we are trained and taught, everything has to be held together and picture frickin' perfect. And I mean perfect, until we can step into the situation or go after what we want. Our capes are wrinkled. There might be maybe a little terror to in it because we're human, right? We've got wisdom, but the capes will never be perfect. If we wait for that perfection, which by the way, that's also about, and that's part of that internal critical dialogue, is that perfectionism, waiting till everything is perfect. Because I want to tell you something, both to men and women, nothing is ever perfect. It can't be. It's impossible for things to be perfect. And it's just moving through and being accepting ourselves of being imperfectly perfect. And my favorite word, frickin' unapologetically.
I totally agree. So the women who are actually listening to us live, and even men as well, if you want to actually come and give us your take on this, what I just asked Kim, okay, please raise your hand. I would really love to hear your thoughts as to why you would want all the check boxes to be ticked before taking a decision. Just, getting a wide perspective. So if you're interested, please raise your hand. I'll be happy to bring you up. Now, while we're waiting for people to join the conversation, do you think imposter syndrome and the inner critic has any sort of connection by any chance? Like, is it, is it a part of it? Do you think it's connected to it? Is the inner critic the reason why we have imposter syndrome?
This is a great question, and Jason, thank you for asking this. So, and here is my mind. My brain is very visual. So, our inner critic is the conductor of the orchestra. So, visualize, everyone here listening, visualize. She is conducting. She's standing up there waving that stick and conducting that orchestra, right? And when she needs help, she never has to point at imposter. The imposter is the co-conductor. So the two of them are going, okay, let's go over there to the harp where the strings are half broken and the harp represents the lack of worth. And then she'll point over to the trombone section and say loud and clear, chip away at the confidence. And then they'll point over at another section, the piano, completely off tune, and that would be the lack of the esteem. That's how I visualize the inner critic. She's the conductor of our emotional orchestra, but she goes in for the negative stuff to keep us small and where we are at, which we've trained her. We've allowed her to do that. And we can untrain and flip all this around and manage her so she's not so loud and controlling the whole darn thing all the time. We need to be managing all of this, not her. And this is why there's the word self in front of self-confident, self-esteem, self-worth, self, so that we're owning this. If we want this stuff, there's going to be sleeves pushed up and work to do.
Absolutely. She got determination, I can tell you that. Like, she's nonstop.
Yes, she is. She is.
I want to welcome Leslie. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. So please contribute. I would like to. Oh, shit. Did we lose her?
No, she's back. Oh, wait. She was on the stage and now she's back down.
Leslie, try again. I'm going to bring you up. So this conductor thing, this example is really super cool. I really, really appreciate you sharing that. Leslie, can you hear us? Maybe it's the connection. We lost you for a second there.
Oh, there she is. There she is. Hey, Leslie.
Hi, hi. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Are you talking while
Yeah, I don't know.
you're
It's a connection. I think. Can you? Were you able to hear Leslie, Kim?
what was
She's bleeping in and out.
Okay, Leslie. I think the connection is not very clear. Why don't you maybe try again? Maybe we're waiting. Just let me know if you can hear us.
okay? Can you hear me? It's storming here on the East Coast with a lot of high winds.
Oh,
So can you hear
yes.
me now?
Yes,
Yeah, it
yes.
sounds you sound a little bit more stable, Leslie, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're talking about imposter syndrome, but what was that the question that you were posing like a minute ago, Jason?
Yes, yes. I was wondering if imposter syndrome and the inner critic has some sort of relation to it. Like, is it one affecting the other in any means? Stuff like that.
Yeah. It's interesting that you're saying that because the minute that you were sharing this, Kim, it took me back to my college years on the tennis team and my coach saying, "You are your own worst enemy."
Mhm.
However, I have learned, because I'm a Gen X, that just from wisdom going through losing loved ones in life, raising three boys, going through the ebbs and flows of, you know, um, work and just challenging times, that fear is no longer with me. I
Mhm.
don't have that voice as much questioning the perfectionist in me. I mean, we're all human, but I think I've grown and evolved. And I'm at a point in my life where I said, well, what the hell do I have to lose? I'm going to put myself out there, go for it. And if it doesn't work, at least I could reflect back on my life someday and say, you know what? I, I tried, I did my best, and I took that leap of faith. But I just love your energy, Kim, and
Thank you.
sorry, and love to be here.
Yeah, I think first of all, Leslie, thanks, and I love the name of your podcast, "Keep It Dirty" podcast. I like that a lot. And thanks for stepping up. But I think a lot of us with wisdom and time, and of course tools, we do that inner critic voice does get smaller, and that's what we. That's what if I could just wave a wand for everybody, that's what I would want for everybody is have that inner critical voice be smaller so the confidence can really amplify. So our really our authenticity, authentic, those are buzzwords out there on social media, but everybody wants it. But yet, we're hiding behind imposter or we're hiding behind, the lack of worth. It takes a lot of courage and bravery to step in and minimize, not kick the inner critic, that critical voice. I'm going to kick the ass to no, but to learn how to minimize that. So, yay, Leslie, for having your critical dialogue be very minimal. And you're right, we are human. It never 100% goes away, but being aware of it and learning how to soften it and quiet it down.
Absolutely, absolutely. Leslie, please continue to be on stage. I'm sure you would have more questions. Okay, I want to welcome Regina. Thank you. This is the first time you are being a part of this podcast. I just want to let you know we are recording this conversation, and by being on stage, you're giving us consent to utilize this recording. May monetize it, distribute it, make small segments out of it, stuff like that. So, Regina, I hope that's okay.
Sure. Thank you, Jason, and thanks for asking for our participation. And hello, Kim. Good
Hi.
hearing
Hi.
you.
I know, Regina. It's good to hear you too. Thanks.
Yeah, so Jason, you were asking about the imposter syndrome and how that inner critic are they related? Is that my understanding?
Yes, yes, of course.
Yeah, so when I think about that imposter syndrome, I think about really agreeing with Kim on the things that we may be saying to ourselves, even wondering, are we an imposter? Do we really have this ability? So it's coming about what we could be thinking about ourselves. The inner critic, though, is possibly even co-signing that. One of the things that I have come to understand about the inner critic is that it wants to protect you. So
Yes.
it does want to keep you small. So it wants
Yes.
to protect you from, from anything that it believes, like it could be embarrassment, or it could be, no, you don't want to go on that stage. So the purpose of it is to protect you, but what it's really doing is putting you down and
Yes.
making you doubt yourself. And so when I think about both of those coming together, I do agree. I like the symphony that Kim did, that it orchestrate. It's the conductor for the inner critic. But I think that we begin to play a role when we think we have that imposter syndrome, because we are basically not believing enough in ourselves. So it's
Yes.
kind of like your example, whether or not you should call Renee. Um, and that's how I think about it. So hopefully that was helpful.
Oh, spot on there, Regina. Spot on. It is spot on.
Absolutely. I love what you have shared, Regina. Please continue to be on stage. Is there anything you like to contribute to what Regina said, Kim?
Yeah, absolutely. It is. It's like I said, that critical, that inner critic, that critical dialogue goes hand in hand with imposter, and the lack of the worth and the esteem and the second guessing, and and chipping away at the confidence. And yes, I mean, everything Regina said was very spot on. And it does. The I see that hag in the attic wants to keep us safe, because all our adult lives, that's the job we've given. That's the job description: keep me safe. And so it does. It keeps us safe. It really does. But it's really beating us down and keeping us small. And we need to learn how to rise above it. Like Leslie was saying, over the years, boy, I've learned how to get that voice quieter, smaller. That's what we want. If the voice is going off, it's only for 5-10 minutes, not 10 years, 10 months, 10 days.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Ladies, please continue to be on stage because I have a little fun activity which we would do with Kim, and your participation would really make it great. I have a question, Kim. Okay, I was just thinking, do you think it's kind of a battle, right? It's kind of a battle which you're constantly having with this inner critic. Do you think at some point we might just feel overwhelmed, discouraged, and you will get exhausted, trying to fight this beast? What would you do then?
I think you just described burnout.
Yeah, but
Jason, I think you just
not in this, but
described.
not in the sense of like burnout of things which you do and you're getting burnt out from that. But I'm just saying burnout with the inner critic. Like, it's constantly, because you said it comes 20 folds, and you're constantly trying to convince yourself, no, this is what I am supposed to do. And a person who may not have that kind of experience, maybe somebody who's new, it could sound, very exhaustive. It's like, what the hell is this? Like, why can't it just stop?
When we battle or fight anything, I hear women, oh my God, I'm working 80 hours a week. And it's like, yeah, grind, grind, grind. Been there. When we need to be in grit and grace. And that's the type of the relationship we need with the inner critic. So when we're constantly being um, boxing, it's like I have this vision of I've got on my boxing gloves and I got a boxer and I'm fighting her. And oh my God, I don't know about any of you, but I'm going to lay down and I'm going to take a nap because of all that fighting. When we're really fighting ourselves, take that into that one. We're really fighting ourselves around that. And that's why, again, I keep coming back. It's so important to be surrounding yourselves with like-minded individuals that can be authentic and transparent, that have gone through it, and and things that they've done and are experiencing it or not, and having the skills and the tools to manage that, so that we're not fighting it, and then that we're not fried and burnt out. I mean, listen, I fought mine for 48 and a half years, and I fell asleep at a major intersection when I was 48 and a half years old. And let me tell you, I didn't think I was tired that day. And I fell asleep at a red light. Thank goodness my foot didn't come off the brake, because I would have been in the middle of intersection. And Regina, who lives in the Detroit area where I came from, that was at 14 Mile and Woodward. Woodward Avenue is 8 lanes. 4 lanes south all the way downtown Detroit, 4 lanes north going all the way out into the suburbs. And not only did I fall asleep once, but I fell asleep twice. And I was a mile and a half from my home, made it home safely. I think, Jason, you'll laugh at this. I had to go through the red light to turn around to go through the light again in order to travel west. They're called Michigan turns, Michigan lights. All I can remember that day is rolling my windows down in August, turning the air conditioning up full blast, and cranking Aerosmith because Jason and I were talking before the show about Aerosmith, and I think that's what got me home safely. But it wasn't until the next day, and I'm an early morning person. I like mornings. I think nights can be useless. 8 o'clock, it's dark. It's time to put on the quitting time and Big Bang Theory or whatever. But I love being up early in the morning before everyone else is up. And here's what I realized what I was doing. I'd wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and before I even put my feet on the ground, this is what I would say to myself. I wonder what my schedule like is today, because I want to know when I'm finished so I can come back to bed. And I would go back to bed fully dressed, sometimes even with shoes on. I was talking myself asleep instead of waking up and going, well, geez, I'm alive today. Yay, I'm breathing. Or, woo, I wonder what I have to look forward to. I was telling myself a story. Just get through the day so you can go back to bed. So it doesn't surprise me I fell asleep at a major intersection. And instead of saying, oh, I wonder what my day looks like, I'm going to come back to bed, is that next morning I opened up my eyes and it was dark. It's 5 a.m. And I looked at the drywall above my head and I went, whoa, hot damn. I'm really grateful for that drywall above my head. And I'm also grateful that my husband and I were able to build and design that. I had to start switching things all up because of the dialogue, the critical dialogue that I was telling myself. And so that's how it came to me, because I didn't think I was tired that day when I fell asleep at the red light. Not once, but twice. I did it twice within seconds.
Well, I'm super glad that you're safe and sound. Nothing happened.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh my god. Wow. Wow. That is super crazy. Okay, now it's actually time for us to take a quick break. I have a sponsor shout out. So it's Carla Howard who has been sponsoring my show since last season. So I really appreciate you, Carla. So I'm going to play an ad and then we will go to the fun segment of the interview. Let's have some fun.
Are you a professional speaker who's frustrated because you're not getting paid for the value you deliver? If so, the Get Paid from the Stage program was created for you. During our 6 weeks together, you will build the framework for your speaker business. You'll create an amazing speaker package that event organizers are going to take notice of. And I will walk you through the sweet spot for pricing and many other things that are going to make you referable so that you can earn the high dollar value that I know you're delivering. Be sure to sign up soon. Our next cohort begins March 2nd, and it's limited to no more than 10 people. Send me a note and let me know that you heard about the program from Jason's podcast to get your free 1-hour consultation with me at no extra charge. I can't wait to see you get paid from the stage.
Thank you, Carla. Thank you so much for that lovely audio. So I really dig her. I'm very fond of people who actually do good work. She's among one of those individuals, similar to you, Kim. And I really appreciate what she's doing. I have referred a lot of people. Please know that, when you do mention my podcast, or when you do reach out to Carla, if you are interested in getting paid from stage, I do make a small commission. I want to be very real at no extra cost to you. That's how we generate revenue for podcast. So let's actually welcome Thomas. Thomas, thank you so much for joining the stage. I know it's very early in Australia. How are you? So nice to have you once again on stage. Do you have a question for Kim, or would you like to contribute?
Sure. Thanks, Jason, and thank you, Kim. I'm always interested in this topic, and I had two comments, I guess. The first one was I was interested in your comment after Leslie regarding the reduction of the inner critic after or with age and wisdom, and I can totally, I guess, endorse that because I think when I turned 60 last year, I realised that life's too short, and why listen to the inner critic so much? And I think it's kind of liberated me, and yeah, I tend to go for things more now without trying to analyze whether they're going to be good or bad. Just kind of go with the flow. And secondly, I had to mention we have something in common. When I was about 49, I too also fell asleep at the wheel. It was a safe. Nothing happened untoward, but it could have, and that was it was literally a wake up call for me. Someone tapped on my window and said, "Are you okay?" And my son was actually in the back seat with me, so I can totally agree with you. I also wake up about 5 a.m. most days, and yeah, by about 2 or 3, you tend to feel a little bit less in energy. So yeah, that's my little 2 tidbits for this morning in Australia.
Mhm. Mm. I feel like we need to buy you a cup of coffee, Thomas, because it is very early over there in Australia. But I'm glad nothing happened, and especially having your son in the car with you. And I love you. I love what you said, and literally, no pun intended, the biggest wake up call. Because for me, that was my biggest wake up call as well. And I'm here today as that biggest wake up call. But boy, oh boy, I'm telling you what, I've hiccuped, I've slipped. It's perfect. It's perfectly imperfect how I show up.
Thanks, Kim.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome. That is lovely. I would like to actually address something which Thomas said. I'm glad you're safe and sound again, Thomas, along with your son. I'm really happy to hear that. What I want to ask you, Kim, with regards to what Thomas said, he said that as we age, okay, this inner critic does not really perform that well, you know? I'm just saying from a KPI standpoint, is it like, as we age, we kind of stop giving a damn and we don't actually focus on it much, and because we don't give a damn, that's why it kind of underperforms and it does not affect us to that extent. So is stop giving a damn the best way or the best solution for this?
Well, I like that. Let's just all stop giving a damn. Yeah, I think, I'd like to see some of the younger generation, especially the younger females that are up, emerging leaders up and coming, to stop giving a damn early on. I think we need classes of stop giving a damn when we're in kindergarten, and teaching a lot of this stuff. But I believe with wisdom, because I work with, and by the way, Thomas, welcome to the club. 60, I'm 64. Thomas and I've got the six club going on here. But there are a lot of women that are my age that I work with that have not arrived to that yet. So it's not even really necessary, age. It's for me personally. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and that was my inner critic making me sick and tired and beating me, that I was allowing in that critical dialogue. I mean, we talked earlier. I had one of my first businesses is a fitness business. I want you to know what I used to do, and I'm a small person. I used to stand in the mirror and tell myself how fat I was, not eat all day long, just eat so much at dinner and then just keep going after dinner, work out like 4 hours after eating, which our bodies, by the way, don't work that way. Our metabolisms, our bodies don't do that. And that's such self abuse. Food we need to survive. We have to have food to survive. To why to go beat ourselves up afterwards. And the other thing I used to do when I thought I was so fat is I would buy men's mediums and large oversized sweatshirt and cover my body. I mean, that's the critical dialogue that either we heal from that or we don't. And it takes a lot of interpersonal turning in work and having support around it. Because I also hear a lot of people, oh, I got this. You know what? Yeah, I'm sick and tired of being, I'm sick and I've got this. Well, when you tell yourself you got this without any help and support, that's that critical dialogue that's got you choked down still. Because we need help and support. We're human. We've got so much stuff coming at us. We need to be surrounded by others.
Absolutely. You got this. You got this, guys. People who are listening, you guys got this. And when you were highlighting about how you felt about your body and how you used to wear those loose sweatshirts, me and Leslie, we used to have these conversations about, and I think Leslie can speak on this, about how to be comfortable in your own skin and just embrace who you are and the way you are. Leslie, would you mind speaking on that? I think she might be still driving.
No, I'm good. What was that? Can you repeat that, Jason?
Being comfortable in your own skin. Body shaming. We used to discuss a lot about it when we were trying to work on your brand. You remember? You used to speak about body shaming and what women used to feel awkward and I'm not comfortable, stuff like that. Do you remember that?
Oh, absolutely. And I think just with social media, now I have 3 boys um, who are not as critical, but a lot of my friends with daughters, especially in the teenage years, I mean, men and women go through this. You see these perfect images, these perfect bodies that have been airbrushed and altered, and that's really not the true identity of ourselves. We're all beautifully imperfect. So yeah, there's a lot of that out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's have some fun. I'm going to play a sound effect. Okay, so this is rapid fire questions. I have a few questions which I would be asking specifically to Kim, and I have a common question which I would ask everyone on stage. All right. So, my first question to you, because you were on radio, what is the most funniest thing you said or heard on radio, on your internet radio station? I don't know if you ever got the opportunity to host something, but did you hear anything funny? Or did you say something funny?
Oh my gosh. Jason, that was like so long ago. Okay, wait a minute. Did I hear anything funny or did I say anything funny? Well, I don't know how the terms hag in the attic were born, but I think that came out on a radio show. We were just talking. I'm like, yeah, she's a damn hag in the attic. And it was a laugh. Everyone just, I mean, the guest and I just started laughing. The producer was sending behind the scenes messages. He was on the floor, laughing. So I think the hag in the attic was one of the most funniest things that came out of my mouth. And I'm sure there was plenty more, but that was so long ago.
Well, I'm glad something came out of that and you were able to still use it even today. So this is pretty cool. Next question. Okay. What is the most weirdest thing you have ever eaten and would you eat it again?
The weirdest thing I've ever eaten, and would I eat it again? God, that's a good question, Jason. I can't even think the weirdest thing I've ever eaten, and would I eat it again? Well, if it was weird, no, I wouldn't eat it again. And I can't even think of the weirdest thing I've ever eaten. I'm trying to think of all my travels and trying things. I actually have no answer for that. But if it was weird, I wouldn't eat it again.
That's all right. That's okay. That's okay. All right. All right. If you could have any mythical creature as a pet, who would you choose and why? When I say mythical creatures like, let's say unicorns, dragons, phoenix, etc.
Oh, I would have. I want a. Well, I don't know if this is mythical. So my mind goes to dragons, so that the fire breathing well, and my dragon wouldn't fire breathe because I don't want the dragon setting everything on fire. But they fly. They're these pterodactyl type things in the air and they fly, and I could just see myself on the back of that dragon flying to get to the next client or get to the next place, and just really making a really cool statement with that look.
Absolutely. Dragon as it is. Flying dragon. Game of Thrones. Nice.
You agree? Yeah, exactly.
All right. So this is the common question I have for everyone on stage. Okay. If you guys who are listening to us live, if you guys could give your inner critic a silly nickname, what would it be and how would you introduce them to others? If you're not able to come up with the introduction because we have just a short span of time, just come up with a nice name. And for you, Kim, if you have to rename it, if you have to rename the hag in the attic to something else, what would you, choose? So I'm going to start off with Thomas first and go backwards. I'll give you enough time, Kim, to think about this. Okay. So Thomas, if you're ready,
Put me on the spot. Can you hear me? I've got
yes,
the earpods on,
yes.
walking the dog. Um, I can't really think of anyone, although I will say, I don't know if any of you know the recently deceased Dame Edna Everage, who was a comedian who had worldwide acclaim. He had or she who's a he who's a she, had a alter ego called Madge, Madge, and you'd have to YouTube it or Google it to understand why I said that. But I'll say the word Madge.
I'm gonna look this up. Okay, match thing. Okay, match. Okay, lovely name. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. So Thomas inner critic is match. Let's hear from Regina. So Regina, do you have a nickname for your inner critic?
Well, it's funny you were talk about the nickname for inner critic because this was several years ago when Kim had us to do names for our inner critic, but it wasn't necessarily funny. Mine was at that time was Regine because my name is Regina, and so I just named her Regine. So I guess if I had to think of something funny, maybe Ring Ring, constantly ringing in my ear and saying something she don't need to say to me.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, ring ring. That is super cool. That is super cool. Let's hear from Leslie. Leslie, do you have like a name for an inner critic, like a nickname you would offer your inner critic? I don't know. I think.
Uh,
Uh huh.
yeah, that's a good question. I just remember, well, growing up in New York, and having family there, we would have these Yiddish terms, and my mother would say, "You're such a glutton for punishment," meaning like that. I would just be like, "Okay, yeah, I'll do that." Like, my brother would sit back, and I would always be eager to, do the things that nobody else wanted to do, chores around the house and whatnot. So, I guess glutton. How's that? I haven't thought of that in years.
Yeah, this looks like a really cool idea. You should actually ask your clients to nickname their inner critics. I think that should be super cool, and we can address them like an individual, right?
Well, that's the best way to tame your inner critic is to give it a persona, and if you can, have a character or something like that representing it, so that when it does come up, it's a little bit more easier to address it.
Absolutely, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Okay, now Kim, how about you? What would you rename, or what would be a new nickname you would offer your inner critic? Let's say we are evolving and it's 2024, and you decided that the old hag in the attic or the hag in the attic sounds pretty old. Okay, it's maybe we want to try something new. What would you call it?
Well, there's a couple of things because my hag in the attic, the character is from Monster Inc., and I can't remember her first name. And so my inner critic is that character. She's got those cat eye sunglasses, glasses and all that. I can't remember that. So I'd either rename my inner critic her name, and I'm like I said, I'm lost from that Monster Inc. movie one, or CCAB. I think I would, just quick short initials,
Boo.
CCA,
I think the name.
CCAB.
I think the name of that young girl is Boo.
No, no, is it Boo? I don't know. I'm gonna have to I'll have to Google that. I don't think I thought because she was like a teacher or something or in
Oh, you're
Monster
not
Inc.
referring
and
to
she
the
always had
child. You're not referring to the child.
no, 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 no. It's an adult in Monster Inc. And in fact, I have the character sitting on my desk at home. But the other one, I think the other name I would name it is CCAB, which stands for crazy kooky ass bitch.
That's super crazy. Okay, okay. Okay, so now I want to ask you this, Kim. Okay, so I know that you also help a lot of people get into TED and TEDx stages, right? I
Yes.
also have a friend who helps out with these things, and I have actually asked a lot of my guests who have been on my show, and they speak very profoundly, and they have interesting ideas which they share. And I asked them, why don't you try to be on stage? Why don't you try to take up this opportunity? And they really, really hesitate. Do you think because TEDx is so established and so big, that kind of really puts fear in people's mind that that's not a good way to good option to try? They hesitate a lot. Have you encountered this? Have you ever experienced this with your clients or maybe people whom you have dealt with?
Well, I have clients that do hire me because they do want to pull together a TED Talk and get out there and apply and create a whole strategy around it. My first thing is, okay, so why do you want to do a TED Talk? Why do you want to up your game with a keynote or whatever the case may be? Because a TED Talk and a keynote are two totally different things. And when you're doing a TED Talk and accept it onto a franchise, because TED Talks are franchise, each franchise is different. The one that I sit on, the team that I sit on is TEDx Camden, which is Camden, New Jersey. It's an intense process. We start coaching 60 about 2.5 months out to the actual event, and we meet with the presenters weekly. And when you're doing a TED talk, you have to go into intense memorization. Keynote is different, but I think what happens with a lot of people, Jason, is the reason why they don't ever arrive to a TED talk is because they can't get the thoughts in their heads landed, and then a plan of action, how to get in front of a TED Talk, because there's a lot of applying involved. You have to have descriptions. There's a lot of stuff to get involved before you get to that stage. But I think that in their voices, that critical dialogue is, I'm all over my head. I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I want to talk about, all of that. And that's why a lot of people hire me, is to help get all that clear and land that so they can tidy it up and go apply to a TED. I've never really experienced people hesitating on a TED talk. I hear people hesitate on writing a book, which is another form of voice.
Yeah, so true. Yeah, I have also not. I think by the time you are on, you know, in that stage or on that stage, I don't know grammatically which is right, but when you're doing the TED talk, I think the individual has done so many talks and have actually practiced so many times and have gone through it so many times. I think it naturally just comes out, or maybe just they're just hiding it. Maybe they're nervous deep inside. Maybe the inner critic is really struggling and fighting, but they probably have decided that I'm going to overcome it. I'm going to do this, and I actually don't care.
Yeah. Yes. And then the work begins after that. Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. One last funny question before we move on to the business side of things. If you could teleport anywhere in the world right now and start fresh, where would you go and why?
Teleport anywhere in the world. I would my home. I don't need to teleport and start fresh. As Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz with the ruby red slippers clicked her heels, there's no place like home. And really, home is within where the heart is. I would just say my home.
That is lovely. Where is your home, Kim? Just for the listeners.
My home is in Birmingham, Michigan. It's a suburb of Detroit, which I'm not there right now. We are down in Hilton Head, South Carolina, just for a few weeks to get a break from the Michigan winter, which my understanding, and I'm sure Regina on here can if she's still on here, I think she might have left. Michigan had a 71-degree, this is Fahrenheit, everybody, 71-degree Fahrenheit day yesterday, which is unheard of in February. But then now they're back down to winter today with winds of 25 miles an hour and 25 degrees. It's just been really a crazy winter.
It is. It is actually. So Kim, I want to give you the stage to promote anything as you desire, be it you're helping people with their TEDx talk, coaching them, your speaking engagement. What would you like to promote on my show?
Oh, I appreciate that. You asking that, Jason. Thank you so much. I don't have any actual programs to promote. The only way people can work with me is one-on-one, a one-on-one capacity where you are wanting to reclaim your voice so that you are minimizing imposter and the inner critic and really stepping up your game for executive communication. And then the other way is I do a 90-day VIP when people have a keynote or a presentation and it's all mapped out, and then they got to push their sleeves up and get ready for that delivery. So those are the two ways you can work with me.
Absolutely. And for more information, guys, please reach out to Kim directly on LinkedIn, DM her, or you can visit the website, which is B for Bravo, Smith.com. If you don't have a pen and paper with you, it's okay. I have it listed under the event notes. You should be able to also find it under the show description if you're hearing this on replay. Is there anything else you like to share with us, Kim?
Yeah, I mean, just everybody that has listened in or that was here live today or is going to listen to the replay because they couldn't make it during live time is, we all have this inner critic. You're not alone. You're not alone. And you don't have to fake things to cover that up, because when we are faking things until we, whatever it is, fill in the blank, make it, we attract the fakeness. We're putting lies and fakeness out. So, from the bottom of my heart is to really reclaim that internal, bold, compassionate voice so that we talk nicely to ourselves and so that we can in turn show up so transparent with huge confidence.
I could not agree more, and I appreciate you sharing that last bit. And thank you. You've been such an amazing guest, Kim. I was able to actually clarify a lot of things about inner critic, which I personally had in my brain, just processing, trying to understand and comprehend this whole thing. So according to me, this was a very insightful and fun episode. You're such an amazing individual to interact with and work with. And this whole experience for me was absolutely phenomenal. I hope you also felt the same working with me in terms of executing this whole show.
Thank you so much for having me. It was you're fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I want to quickly make a quick announcement before we wrap up. Next week, I'm going to be doing a show March 6th, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's called Beyond the Balance Sheet. I've been trying to get a hold of an accountant from a really long time, Derek Espedas. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Okay, but he's going to be a guest on my show March 6th, 3 p.m. next week Eastern Standard Time. We would like to decode the business of numbers and how does it work with entrepreneurship, what is the correlation, stuff like that. It's going to be very interesting. If you do access the event page on LinkedIn, you should be able to find link to that specific event, or you should be able to find it under the featured section of my LinkedIn profile. Thank you so much, guys, for your love and support. Please take care. Have a lovely morning, evening, afternoon, good night, wherever you're in the world. Take care.